Record on the, there it is. Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Anderson, good morning. Hi. I'm assuming Ms. Rafi, you're with Ijama, correct?
No, I'm not. I'm just calling in to learn about what's going on.
Okay, so if we could have you turn your video off, listen in only. It's a board meeting, but I appreciate your interest in attending. Thank you. Just really quick, this is the second meeting of January 13th. Let me know when you're ready.
You're already recording, so please go ahead and start.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. This is the second meeting, January 13th, Cannabis Program Working Committee meeting of the City of Hawthorne, called to order at the time of 11:10. We'd be led by the Pledge of Allegiance. If I could please ask Sergeant Craig, if you could do us the honors, please.
Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, can you please do the roll call?
Yes, Madam Chairperson. Madam Chairperson Reyes English,
Yes, here.
City Manager Norris. City Manager Norris. City Attorney Kim,
They're present.
thank you. Interim Director McLean. Sergeant Kenny Craig,
Present, ma'am.
thank you.
I'm in a committee meeting right now.
Oh, okay. Can you call me back?
Okay, yeah.
Do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
Carmen, I'm sorry I missed my present. I'm here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, City Clerk. Go ahead and if you could read the guidelines for oral communications.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.3, all remarks shall be addressed to the committee as a body and not to any individual member. During oral communications, speakers shall have 3 minutes to state their business. Hence, the Brown Act prohibits the committee from providing a detailed response or acting upon any items not contained on the agenda. The committee as a body shall have the discretion at the close of oral communications to refer any remarks to the City Clerk's Department for further study, investigation, report, and or recommendations. That is the conclusion of our oral communication statement, Madam Chairperson.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to address this body? If there is,
We did not receive any request and confirmed just prior to the meeting starting. It was noted that 9:30 a.m. would be the cutoff. However, in an abundance of caution, we did review 10 minutes prior to the beginning of the meeting. And
Okay,
there was
great.
no one submitted.
okay, if there are no objections, then I declare oral communications closed. Just a little housekeeping before we get started, and thank you for everyone's patience. I was having difficulties logging on. If you could please address the chair in discussion, and if you could please raise your hand so that you could be recognized. Go ahead and go on to item number 2, which is written communications, and we've already done that. Obviously, there was no written communications, no speakers. Item number 3 is a presentation of the implementation plan for the city's cannabis program with Ms. Anderson. Please proceed, ma'am.
Thank you, Councilwoman Reyes English. Today, we're going to go over our development plan. We have looked over the scope of the contract and created a more robust implementation plan that outlines where we're going to go, pretty much a roadmap. I submitted that as an agenda item. So I want to just make sure that the committee has the attachment. It's the scope of work, but then we kind of go through specifics. So my idea for the working committee will be that each committee meeting, we will tackle one of the items within the development plan so that we have a clear understanding of what we're going to develop or implement for that specific portion of the scope. So this meeting, we're going to talk about our outreach strategy. But before we do that, I wanted to go through the entire implementation plan so that we're all on the same page of where we're going. The first item on the implementation plan is to conduct community outreach, and that will be our first item of business in the working meeting. The next one is develop cannabis ordinance and permit application process, including the social equity eligibility requirements. So after we have gone out into the community and received feedback on the uses that are being proposed and the program, including community benefits and whatnot, we will then develop what specifically that cannabis ordinance and the permit process will look like. Next, we'll prepare the submission requirements and a timeline for applicants to follow. So the idea is that we have a very transparent process and keep the entire community at large informed on every part of this process. And so these requirements and the timeline will be posted online. We will provide them in this meeting, but we want to make sure that we're very clear about the process requirements and the timeline and give individuals an opportunity to prepare their applications accordingly. Then we'll post all of those materials on the website and develop what our cannabis program website will look like. So we should have a central hub, especially with COVID, since we're doing a lot of virtual meetings and collaborations. We'll need to make sure that those are, all of our documents are housed in a central location. So that will take a bit of time for us to develop specifically what that will look like and what things will be available to prepare and or submit online. The other thing that we have in terms of marketing and website materials is, again, the feedback or any research that we found on our outreach. We can decide whether or not how we will present that information online. So I just want to make sure that we have that as an action item, because that might be a whole meeting just figuring out how we can best present information and make sure that the public is aware of everything. And the city will give us guidance on that. Assist applicants with the planning and development process. So typically when we're going through a cannabis program process, we have new entrepreneurs getting started in the space and we may not be familiar with the requirements. And so we like to take time to go over those. We can do it again, like in a Zoom meeting, but go over all of the requirements and what the city is expecting. And then we have provide community and industry education regarding the commercial cannabis program. So if we want to do any additional outreach specifically to our applicants or hold something like a bidders conference, we have the opportunity to develop that as well. Provide contract staff for the planning department as needed throughout the application process for application questions and intake. So that is within our scope, but we probably don't need a whole meeting for that. The application pre-selection process and application screening, and develop and draft the conditions of approval or any development agreements or land use entitlements as needed. That whole process may be a meeting or two, but we need to develop what that screening looks like. What are we going to, how are we going to rate the applications if we're doing a merit-based process? The other thing that we have that would require some development from this committee is the development standards or any design guidelines. If we are utilizing older facilities, we may want to look at how the city can get those buildings to the current design standards, or if you have any specific design standards for cannabis, for example, additional security requirements. Those are the things that we would want to develop as part of this meeting. We also have review and analyze cannabis project applications in accordance with the applicable zoning requirements and development standards, again, that we would be adding to the existing zoning ordinance around the cannabis program, but we may not need a whole meeting for that. And conduct any CEQA review or any other environmental review. Again, part of what this committee will ultimately be deciding what are the requirements for the program, but we'll do that as part of our collaboration with city staff. The next meeting that we would want to have to dedicate to one of the scope items would be conduct applicant business development workshops. So if we decide to go with anything outside of the state norm in terms of operating procedures, and a lot of cities do, there may be specific city requirements. We'd want to prepare those for our incoming applicants, those who have been selected. That's what we would do at one of our committee meetings, is set the standards for those. And then, of course, develop any social equity policies and programming. So we talked last time about what the social equity process and program could look like, but we should spend at least a meeting developing that further and what resources we're going to provide to those applicants. And then we will also be conducting ongoing monitoring and condition compliance, meaning everything that we're asking applicants and then ultimately operators to do, we would need to have some type of meeting where we come back and evaluate how those businesses are performing. So that is the roadmap for the process. I'm sure along the way we will add, this is a skeleton, so we'll add some meat to it as we go along. But today, for our first meeting, I would like to tackle developing that community outreach strategy. Do you have any, are there any questions?
Yes, I'll raise my hand.
Yes, Rob.
Yes, go ahead, Robert.
Okay, so what I want you to bear in mind, Ebony, is that this is the first committee, it's a working committee to set things up. And the next transition is another committee that will be formed through City Council, which will be the licensing committee or commission. And then that will transition into the oversight commission. So I just want you to bear in mind at some point, I believe around between D, J, and K, we're gonna most likely transition to another commission, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I just want you to bear that in mind. So.
Yes, and I do have that. We will have the working committee, we will have the selection committee and the oversight committee. So how we develop that plan here will probably roll over to those other committees.
So when we get close to the period when we need to transition into a licensing application commission or committee, I need you to kind of notify me so that I could put that as a resolution for council meeting. Okay.
Okay, absolutely. I think we can narrow that down maybe even today, one of those bullet points. But I think once we have the process together and we have the application components, I think then we can move on to the next selection committee.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert, for your question, and thank you, Ms. Anderson. Let me just say real quick, Happy New Year's to everyone.
Yep.
I didn't get a chance to say that. Hawthorne, as you know, we're excited for this new cannabis program, and the working committee here today are the ones that ultimately is working with the consultants, EJMA, in preparing a robust and good cannabis program that's a fit for the city of Hawthorne. And so we thank you in advance for your guidance and your due diligence with regards to assuring a good cannabis program. I want to go straight into our next item. And I'm glad that you outlined, first of all, each one that we will bring to the committee and address individually. And that's exactly how I prefer it, so that there's no colluding going on. No, everybody understands exactly what were the requirements and what was ultimately the decisions of the board on how to move forward in ultimately providing this to the council for ratification and approval. Let's go into item number 4, which is the community outreach development discussion. And you could go ahead, Mrs. Anderson.
Thank you for that. Yes, so if you have the attachment, I just went through it, but the ones just as a note for the committee, everything in bold are items that I think that we should discuss at one of these open meetings. The other items are things that we'll be working with planning staff or city staff on. So just that clarification. So the first meeting is the development outreach strategy. It's important for us all to have a game plan on what the outreach looks like, what is the information that we want to capture from our residents, and also our strategy for targeting residents. So the first thing I have are the meeting details. When do we want to host these meetings? During the conversation we had at the council meeting around the scope of the contract, we have 3. We asked for an additional meeting. There were 3 that was requested here during this past meeting at the committee. And we added a 4th one on just in case we wanted to target a specific demographic that perhaps a religious organization, or we talked about Kiwanis Club or something like that. So we did add in an extra one in the model, but we know we need to have a minimum of 3 per the councilwoman's recommendation. So we have at least 3 outreach meetings, and we should probably have them spaced apart so that everyone has an opportunity to attend at least one meeting. And I wanted to take it back to the staff at the city to figure out what would be the best timing for at least doing the outreach and figuring out what days and times and locations we'll be able to film. If we're going to do a Zoom like this, or are we going to do something where we present at the city and then have it streamed? Those are the kind of logistic things that we can talk about. And then we'll talk about the notification requirements and distribution for those meetings. And then finally, we'll go into the deep dive here and talk about what is it that these workshops are going to look like.
Right.
So let's start with the meeting details. Madam Chair, if you have any direction on that.
Well, considering everything that has been happening currently, right? There's a lot of folks staying home, a lot of folks that are not available. That includes city staff. I wanted to get from you a timeline that you believe we could start. Is it maybe after February, given the Omicron and the issues that are occurring currently? I want some time for folks to get better. I want a robust folks participating.
Right. Yes.
We need the community participation, and it's difficult when you're sick.
Absolutely. And we've seen in LA the numbers are rising and fast. And so we have the same thought. We have the exact same thought. Maybe we start the top of the spring. That gives everyone opportunity to get through this winter season.
Yes.
And then we maybe start, I was thinking even the beginning of March.
Yes, I agree. And I think it's important for everyone to understand and to have some empathy on those that are having some challenges. And, that's my concern. And I just want to make sure that we're not missing anyone and we're having a broad outreach. And the 3 is good.
Okay.
I think either a morning for those that are staying home, maybe for later an evening, nighttime for those that are getting off work and want the opportunity to still participate. An evening would be important. And then I think ultimately an afternoon, like the hour where we're having these meetings later in the day, maybe at 2 or 3 o'clock.
Sure.
And then with regards to even maybe a 4th, I want to implement a questionnaire component to it.
Okay.
And I think a questionnaire component with some answers, I should say questions that we pose that we believe we should pose, and see what those responses are from the community is important. So questionnaire component, whether that be included in the 4th or whether that be just another way of capturing some responses. And I think also using maybe some of our billing that we have here in the audience, or excuse me, here in the city, that we could put leaflets into mailers, right? And speak on the days and times of those meetings. And I don't know, a questionnaire that would be posted on our website.
Absolutely. I think those are excellent ideas. And what we had on our list was definitely a community survey. And so maybe we post it on the website and we send it out through mail. You mentioned doing door to door. I think with with the issues we have right now with COVID, maybe a mail would be a better strategy. So I think that'd be
Oh,
great.
no. Yeah, what I meant was not necessarily a door to door, but we have mailers that we would put a leaflet in, like billing.
Right, right.
Yeah.
The last meeting, we talked about even doing in person or some type of face to face.
Yeah,
So that's why I was just saying,
yeah,
we thought if we do it this way and maybe add that fourth meeting, that would give everybody an opportunity to
Sure.
be there. And we could do that the whole month of March. Like maybe we do one a week for the entire month, and that will give everybody at those different times that you mentioned.
Yeah.
But we could send that survey, and maybe this pushes us down a little bit into B, but maybe we could do a survey posted online beforehand, and then also in preparation for these meetings that will occur in March. And then we also go through that questionnaire during the workshop, as well as that very robust Q&A section that we plan to have to get all of the feedback in live, and then also the comments that we'll get when we post the video.
Yeah.
So I think we should have that. I think it's very important for us to get as many community members involved as possible, and then also post all of the workshop videos so that those who want to attend all three that maybe couldn't can still watch them. So we might get comments and discussions in one meeting that we might not have in another. So it's great for us to post them all online so that anybody can have access to them. And then I think we should schedule our meeting to incorporate those comments maybe a few weeks later so that we have enough time to gather all the additional comments. But I think we need to set a clear timeline for how long we'll accept public comments for the ordinance development.
absolutely, absolutely. And then these meetings that are going to be ongoing, we haven't received any public comment or whatnot yet, but you could guarantee that there will be public comment, and there will be folks addressing this board. Go ahead, Mr. Kim.
Well, thank you. I want to ask Ebony, if are all these things that you have put by categories, are they all to be done one after another, or can some of these functions be done simultaneously? We're discussing 4 meetings for community outreach meetings all in month of March, or what I'm concerned about, what I'm thinking about is, okay, we're going to go through all these phases. Some or most of these will have to be approved by city council. I'm considering the timeline here because looking at ahead, once we get to the application stage and we have the other commission going on, how long is that phase going to take? So I'm trying to get an estimate as to when, how long it's going to take for the program to be launched in the city. So I take it it's going to take a while, but at the same time, I don't want each step to be dragged out for months. And then we're looking at, if we're looking at 2 years down the line, I think that may be a little bit too long. So, because I know that some of the council meetings, we had some call-ins from the residents saying, what's taking so long to get this started already? So, I think, because this measure for the cannabis program was approved kind of overwhelmingly, so I think there's a strong support in the city. And I think if at all possible, we want to have a process of good notification and transparency to the community. But at the same time, I think that there's also a need to not to drag out the process too long. So I just want to bear that in mind. And I think like some of the community outreach meetings, can that be done simultaneously while the committee is working on developing ordinances, for instance, which is the next step that I see?
Robert, no, I don't think so. Because in order for us to develop the ordinance, I mean, we can do some of the foundation work for the ordinance, but in order for us to move forward with the ordinance, unless the city sees it differently, I would say my recommendation would be to get the community feedback first on the uses and what they want to see in terms of safety. That usually comes up quite a bit. So I think that there'll be some room for us to start some of the ordinance, but when we're talking about the specifics regarding operation, those are operational requirements, I do think that we should do the committee meetings, the outreach meetings before we really delve into that, because we're going to have to incorporate all of those comments and take them back with some recommendations to the council. So I'm not really sure how we would be able to do all of it simultaneously.
Okay, I didn't mean all of it simultaneously, but with the process for ordinance, for instance, is we're going to work on it. I'm sure when we're working on this specific ordinances, we're going to get comments from the residents that are viewing the committee meetings. It'll be recommended, it will go to city council, then we're going to go through 2 readings for the ordinance, during at which point residents will also have opportunity to make comments during council meetings. It may be sent back by the city council first. So, and that's just one ordinance process, and that's the timeline is what I'm concerned about is, so if we are to do the community outreach meetings, all 4 before we actually, start working on the ordinance, are we planning to do all 4 meetings within 1 month, or, it could be by Zoom meeting because of the, the pandemic right now, but so I just want to, let that be a factor when we're discussing this, when we're trying to look ahead, basically.
Can I chime in real quick?
Yes.
Can I just suggest maybe a questionnaire that we could post online? We could start an application, not the application, I'm sorry. We could start gathering information from the community, maybe with a questionnaire first.
Okay.
And that's part of the component to our outreach, right? And then we could start, I believe, in maybe a meeting and see how we go in February at maybe the 3rd week in February. I think it's something we could maybe start and see where we go from there. They have to be posted and notified in advance. So if we're going to do this, we have to make sure we select a date and time for our first, but also have the other 3 dates and times so that they could be also provided to the community on the next meeting where they could participate, right?
Right.
If we're going to use Zoom, we need to be able to decide that today. If it's going to be in person, we have to use, I would suggest the Hawthorne Memorial Center, where seats could be in distance. Chairs can be set up so folks have distance between them. It's a large space, and that we have a set number that could participate in person and probably online watching this meeting, which is the a town hall community outreach meeting. So any one of those scenarios I think is helpful, and it's just and it's, Greg, just like you have in planning, and there's public hearings, right, that folks participate in. It's similar to planning commission meetings. Nothing is different here. It's just that we just need to be able to assure that we have the 3 to 4 meetings, and if we're going to do it, one started in February and the other couple in March, or a couple in 2 in February and 2 in March, and okay, let's decide that right now. And then meanwhile, put up the questionnaire so that we could already have that questionnaire out in the community for a long period of time. And by the time the closing period closes for comment, we've collected all of a good number of responses to the questionnaire.
Yeah, Madam Chair, my recommendation, if we want to try to consolidate some of these or create a shorter timeline, my recommendation would be we work on maybe today, spend some time giving some overview of the topics that we want to gather information on. Maybe we get a few of those things, then we can start developing questions to create the questionnaire. We post it in February. We also come up with all 4 dates and times. We post all of them at one time, and then we conduct the the outreach meetings. So that will save us some noticing time, and that will also save us some meeting time. And I think that will hit Robert's goal on not expanding the process too long with in between dead times. So
Yeah.
the help.
But I appreciate that, Mr. Kim. I hear what you're saying. And yes, we've been hearing it for a while now with regards from the community asking why it's taking so long. For folks that are watching, folks that voted on this and folks that, don't maybe understand, there's processes for everything. And this city of Hawthorne, it's its first time. Okay. We're not experts. That's why we have consultants that are helping us in the process. So everything is in due time with due diligence and patience. We're not going to rush this. So we're going to make sure that we're thorough and we're going through every item, even if it takes us 2 to 3 hours, 4 hours here in this committee to assure that we're doing a good job. And that's my commitment. So I appreciate that. And so you want to go ahead and do we want to take out our calendars maybe?
So I brought up my calendar. I think we move, if today we can at least get some large topics, we don't have to get into every specific question. We can take that on, but if we can come up with some broad topics that we want for the survey today, we could get the survey posted. Today is the 13th, so we could maybe have the survey posted the first week of February, if that works with the city timeline, and then we can start those workshops. Maybe that's the third week of February is the 16th, or I'm sorry, the 14th through the 18th, and then the fourth week of February is the 21st through the 25th. So I think we need to figure out a day that works, and we got the time frames already narrowed down. So it's just a matter of, do we want to start that fourth week in February and then trickle them down through March? Or would we like to start the third week of February and do 2 in February and 2 in the first part of March?
Yeah, I think we could do 2 in February,
Okay.
2 in March. And I think if we do the third week in February, because we have city council is when? I have city council was the 11th. We have one on the 25th. Then we have one on the 8th, and we have city council again on the 22nd. So if we could do it maybe not an on council, but maybe the 15th and another on like the 24th.
Do you want to do them on Tuesdays, or do you think that we should have them so that we can still have this committee meeting, or can we have them on the other Thursday that we don't have the committee meeting?
Yeah, I think when we don't have a committee meeting, and I think also what we need to do is include a Saturday, right?
Yeah, weekend, yeah.
Yeah, so if we could do either the 19th or even the 26th, but we need a weekday. The next meeting for us in February, I think it's the 10th, right? Am I right?
Yes, in the first meeting for the committee in February will be the 10th.
The 10th and the 24th. So we could do
there's the week of the 14th, which is, that Mondays are never good.
No.
But we could do either, a Wednesday or a Thursday, maybe 16th or 17th, and then a 26th.
Yeah, I was gonna propose that as well. We do the 17th, which is a Thursday. Folks are already getting geared up to come to these meetings on Thursdays, and so I think that would be a good time to keep it so there's not a lot of confusion. Then we offer maybe the 26th as our Saturday workshop.
Yeah.
And perhaps we do the exact same thing in March. We do a Thursday that we don't have the hearing, and the Saturday that we do. That way, folks, when we have these committee meetings, they still have an opportunity to circle back on Saturday and give us additional feedback.
Okay, so the 17th, now the hour, would that be an evening, a 6 o'clock?
I think the Thursday meeting, I know we're going to have a morning, right? We're going to have a midday, and then we'll have an evening. And then on the Saturdays, I think we should do like a midday, like this time, 11.
Okay, so for
for
the
12.
so 17th, what time?
Let's do the 17th. Let's make that our evening one. So 6 o'clock.
Yep.
And then Saturday, want to do like maybe between 11 and 1, I would say, because I know people have things in the morning, games, soccer practice. So maybe the early afternoon.
1 p.m.
I like it, 1 p.m. And then in March, Robert, can you tell us what days we have the committee meeting in March?
So in March, the committee meeting will be on the 10th of
Mhm.
March and on the 24th of March.
Okay, so we will have the 10th and the 24th, so we could do it that Thursday, the 3rd. And we can do that one as maybe our morning one.
Yeah, Thursday the 3rd, and then maybe the
Saturday, the 12th.
12th, and the 12th can be later in the afternoon, maybe a 2-ish or a 3.
Okay, let's do 3.
Okay. So the 3rd, we're saying, did we say morning?
Yes. So my morning, you want to do 10 a.m.?
Okay. 10 on the 3rd, and then on the 12th, 3 p.m.
Madam Chairperson,
Yes.
I was just gonna make a suggestion. That's the day before the Super Bowl, February.
Oh, you're right.
Oh, darn. Okay, that's probably not a good one.
A lot of traffic and very busy around here, we anticipate.
March the 3rd
No, February
of
12th.
February. Yeah, February.
Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm on
Wait.
the wrong month. My bad.
Yeah.
So we're March. We're good, I think, on the 3rd.
Yeah, I was on the wrong month. I apologize.
So we're good on the 3rd, and we're good on the 12th. And going back to February, we said what was it? The 17th. We said the 17th and the 26th. So it's way after Super Bowl.
Right. So
When is the Super Bowl?
February 13th. I was on the.
February 13th.
Yeah.
When I went back, it clicked back to the other month. I apologize.
Okay.
It's okay, but it is the second week, right? That it starts. I can't even remember. I helped somebody with regards to hotel rooms. Let me tell you, they're all sold
the
out.
13th.
They're all sold out.
13th for the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Okay.
So just to recap, these are the dates that we have tentatively scheduled that will need to be noticed. We have February 17th at 6 p.m., February 26th at 1 p.m., March 3rd at 10 a.m., and March 12th at 3 p.m.
And then we're gonna meanwhile create a questionnaire.
Yes, so why don't we, so now that we have the date, the time, and the location, we're gonna do a Zoom format like this one. So let's move on to the presentation content, our goals, and our key performance indicators. And that would be a good way for us to segue into the hot topics that we will want to cover under the survey. I think the obvious question is, here are the uses that the city is proposing, and what type of security features that you feel are necessary. I think that usually comes up as a very hot topic in the community. How are we going to keep our community safe with these cannabis uses? We have not seen a huge issue with having a lot of cannabis related businesses in many of the cities throughout California, but it's still a legitimate community concern. So I think it's worth addressing security, operational requirements, and I think does any type of upgrades or design standards that the city wants to know from the community would be great to put on the survey.
Yeah, and that's good. As we know right now, our item on the agenda right now is the community outreach development discussion, and we're discussing, we've got the dates and the times, etc. Now I think the questionnaire component is important. I know that we have visited some cities and we have seen some of their cannabis policy legislation, etc. I don't know, Mr. Kim, did we get any samples of questionnaires that were used in other cities? Or
No, I don't think we have that. I think for this aspect, we don't necessarily have to come up with all the questionnaires today. I think we may just need for the committee members, we could either send it all to myself or any of the members, if you have ideas. Maybe it should just be sent to Ms. Anderson, and so that we have a central place, so that in case we think of some additional questions that we want to ask, maybe tomorrow or day after, we could just send it over there. And then at the next committee meeting, we could flesh it out and decide on the all the questions that we want add in the survey. For myself, I personally would like to have any questioner start off with a question: do you support a cannabis program in the city? Because if you have someone that's opposed to the cannabis program to begin with, you're just going to get a bunch of negative answers for all the following questions. So I think we need an understanding as to why a particular person answering the questionnaire would be so negative on all of the categories of questions that may be posed. So other topics that I'm very curious as to what type of licensing the residents are supporting. I think the questionnaire should include all the options of license that the city council has voted on already, and that's pretty much every aspects of this industry. So, some of the residents may have strong opposition to, for instance, cultivation or manufacturing. So those are the areas that I will be interested in, but I don't know whether we could come up with all the questions that we should ask in this one meeting. So maybe people that are watching can even, send in their ideas of certain questions that we should put into the questionnaire. But I think we should finalize the questionnaire at the next following committee meeting.
Can I just interject? And I appreciate your comment. Can we, and I'm going to direct Vaughn and Mr. Kim, can we create an email address for this group? In other words, create an email address where it's public, so that folks that want to pose a question or maybe include a question, all of it can be sent there. And I want to be able to have Mrs. Anderson have access to that so that she could see the questions. Because I want to make sure that we have a good questionnaire, and some of the suggestions and comments that are coming from the public be included, including those that you may mention, Mr. Kim.
That's a great idea. Yes.
I think that would be the best bet, because I don't want to be inundated, and I know you don't want to be inundated. So if we have just a general email, and it could be, Hawthorne Cannabis Working Committee, email. If we could get that created, Vaughn, that would be great.
Madam Chairwoman, just to recap and also kind of piggyback off of what Robert was saying is, I don't think we should go into all of the specific questions today, but what we can talk about today briefly are I think the hot topics. So security obviously is going to be a hot topic. I think Robert brought up, the fact, hey, what's the support looking like out in the community for these various activities? We have something that's really new, lounges, consumption lounges. There's not a whole lot of cities that are tackling that. So getting community feedback on what lounges should look like. Those are the type of things that I think I'm just looking for a little direction from the committee. Our team can definitely put together a pretty robust survey, but we do want to get some feedback from the community and the committee, just some hot topics that they might want to have covered. So I know security is going to be one, it always is. Is there anything else? Safety and security will be covered. Are there anything else? Distance requirements, zoning?
And the state has those mandates on cannabis businesses, and the language is there. I don't want to have to reinvent anything. So I want us to piggyback from the states. So if you could assure that, and I think that was part of the scope of work that we'd be mandating and looking at the state's requirements and staying on line with
We're gonna
that.
parallel, yeah, we're gonna parallel the state process. So then I think we're really good then.
Yeah.
Telling just even that bit of information saying, hey, we're gonna parallel the state process,
That's it.
then I think that's a lot of what people are looking to see. Hey, is the city gonna do something
Right.
different? You know,
Right.
so that's really good. The only thing that I think that would be a big part of our survey
Sure.
is maybe those consumption lounges, because the state doesn't govern those. So we would be setting the standards for those. So asking the community and this committee, hey, what does that look like? Is a really great exercise. So if there's anything else.
Let me just mention real quick before I lose my train of thought when you said
Sure,
that
sure.
consumption lounges. Full disclosure, I didn't support. I stayed impartial, neutral with regard to lounges. Okay, so that folks know that it was brought to the council. We modified the list of licensing that we're going to allow. It was cultivation, retail. It was manufacturing. It was delivery, which is transportation, right?
Distribution. You had distribution and delivery under retail, yes.
Right.
And
And then we added to that testing. And then the full council supported lounge. However, I did not, just a full disclosure. And I have my reasons. If you'd like to know, call me up. But it is what it is, right? Again, look forward to working collectively and just drafting a great ordinance, a good cannabis program, and community feedback is going to be very important to all of us. And ultimately, what this program looks like and its prosperity, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to be able to provide community benefits to the community. We want to be able to keep families safe. Myself, a grandmother of 7, I understand the importance of safety and our children. So it's good to know that we're all on the same page, and it's good to know that we're working hard to assure everyone is safe, including those businesses that are ultimately looking for licensing. So anything more, anything else that I might have forgotten, might have not said, anything, Mr. McLean, that you'd like to add?
One thing, Madam Chair, I want to add before we wrap up is, one, I think Vice Chair Craig, maybe we can connect after the group just to make sure we collect your security ideas, concerns, things that you might think might come up, so we can make sure we capture them in the survey. I think you'll be the subject matter expert on what the community might be concerned with safety. And then also, I think we need to figure out, and maybe this could be for our next meeting, but I just want to put it out there, is figuring out how do we determine the success of our results? Is it the number of surveys we receive, the amount of participation, the quality of the responses? What is it that we're going to be looking for and how will we use the data? Those are the things that we'll need to figure out maybe once we have these questions finalized, but really, how will we be using this data in the greater picture for developing the ordinance, and then also just responding to these things to the general public.
Yeah. Okay. Can I just ask one more question before we close? Ms. Anderson,
Sure.
What would you project would be the number of applicants that we could ultimately receive here in the city, considering this is a new program here in Hawthorne?
Well, I'm certainly no oracle, but I definitely think consumption lounges and retail are going to bring you in quite a few interested parties. I think our proposal projected somewhere around 25, and I think that is going to be very conservative. I believe you will have probably closer to 50 to 100 applications, depending on what your real estate availability is, because that is going to determine quite a bit. Those real estate negotiations are really going to drive how many applicants you're going to get. The other key factor is whether or not we will allow for applicants to apply without a location secured.
Okay.
going to determine how many applicants you have as well. But I did in our model, and again, that was just for modeling purposes, but we did it around 25, and that's fairly conservative. We've seen cities receive 40 or 50 without even retail. So
Yeah.
retail is a hot commodity in California. We've all heard lots of the discussions on why retail is so important. But we're also allowing a social equity component, which a lot of cities do not have, unfortunately.
Yep.
So I think we will have a very healthy application pool.
Yeah, we're very fortunate to be a municipality within a certain square miles and be able to touch it, feel it, hands on in comparison to Los Angeles. Oh my goodness, that's just a bigger animal altogether.
Right.
Mr. McLean.
Thank you. I think we should have a question that deals with the estimated number of different uses that the city can. I'm curious what people think, how many retail do they imagine the city can support? How many testing sites and all of that? That's one thing. And the other thing, concerning the survey, I know it's not very scientific, but I wonder if we could leave the survey running until the third meeting so that we can get evolving results, so that as people watch the first two meetings or even watch the third meeting, they can, modify their responses, say, or submit some new ideas. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a good idea. And like I said, it's going to continue until, the close of those meetings. And that's a good idea. So thank you for your input on that. Mr. Kim.
Thank you. This is a kind of a rare opportunity where I'm not a staff, I'm actually on the board and I could express my opinions, which is kind of rare. I can't do that during council meetings. So let me just say this. I'm
Speak your mind, speak your mind.
Lounge business is something that's unique. And I just want to have an open mind. I think for the city, we're interested in having as many applicants as possible. And the fact that this is our first venture into this, we have a consultant that has experience in this, but being new in this industry also gives us an opportunity to be more creative. And I think, initially when I first heard about, this measure being passed and, having prosecutorial background, I was very skeptical about it. But having toured, many facilities from West Hollywood to downtown Los Angeles, where it's being done in a very professional and clean way, and seeing the opportunity provided to the community with jobs and whatnot, I think it's important. As even lounges, it depends how we move forward if we are interested in providing that kind of opportunity, as long as this committee sets clear guideline and very strict guideline about how it's done. Because we have, I think, having prosecuted a lot of DUI related type of cases for a long time, bars and alcohol is a major problem with DUIs. I'm sure if we have lounge, the potential issue is we can add additional, driving while impaired kind of situation. But I don't know how significant that would be compared to bars and, people just drinking alcohol, and how it's done. It's lounges. Does that mean we're going to allow smoking to go on a lounge and spread the smoke all over the neighborhood? I don't think that's the concept that we're thinking of. I think we want to approach this in a very professional way. So I think the community, if they're watching this, it's, there's application process also, it's kind of a reimbursement for the consultant fees, as we saw in the contract. But also it creates an opportunity for the city that's first diving into this to be more creative and maybe become, something that will set a new trend, maybe, but as long as it's done in a professional and responsible way. So I want to keep, my feeling is that the city should keep everything option open. And that's just what I wanted to say.
Thank you. Mr. McLean. Yep, you're muted. You're muted.
Yeah, I was. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, building on Mr. Kim's comments, I think it's important that in these questions that we write, that we include a little bit of an explanation of why and how these things operate. For example, the lounges, I imagine that most people are going to approach that and say, why in the world would the city even consider this? But there are good reasons for this. For example, there are a lot of people that don't have a place to, to use the marijuana, and or that if you're in a multifamily residential, building, it's better that you go somewhere else than, have it seeping through the walls or whatever. So the questions might actually be a little bit of a paragraph where you explain a little bit of the pros and a little bit of the cons, but set it up to explain, what it is and why it is, not just, do you support this or do you support that? I just wanted to out there.
Yeah, and again, these public meetings, good opportunities, especially once they know exactly which licenses the council approved. Mr. Craig.
Yes, ma'am. I just want to echo kind of what the city attorney was saying as well. One thing we noticed here at the department, as soon as marijuana was legalized, the call that we continually to get is when somebody's, exercising their right to smoke in their residence, that odor extends into, especially in apartments and things like that. So that's a common call that we get. So I kind of echo keeping an open mind. I'm sure as we get into it, there's maybe some ventilation systems that could be required or something to minimize that. But that is a large complaint that we get, is the odor permeating throughout the neighborhood into other residences and nearby facilities.
Absolutely. And there's going to be some requirements, heavy requirements with regards to addressing those concerns. Thank you. Mrs. Anderson.
Yeah, I was actually, you took the words out of my mouth. I was just going to say, I don't think that it's any secret that I am a champion for regulation, because I believe that when we educate our community and educate the industry on regulations, we create the highest standards of safety. So I am all for regulations, and I think it's important to have folks that understand what's happening in the cannabis industry and in these businesses to really create regulations that are both safe and then also doable and enforceable. So I think we have a great community committee here, and everything that will possibly come up, we can address through our regulations for lounges. But I also just wanted to remind everyone why we even talked about consumption lounges in the beginning. And it was for the fact that we need places to have safe accessibility. And I just want to remind everyone that while we have in California an adult use program, we also still are moving with our medicinal program. So there are many patients, folks who use cannabis for medicinal purposes that have been prescribed cannabis that are also going to be utilizing retail services and on-site consumption, and we should look at them more like a pharmacy. We don't assume that because you go to the pharmacy at CVS and get your prescription that you're going to pop all of your pills and be intoxicated when you leave, right? So the idea is something similar to that. Cannabis users typically, equate the experience to something like a prescription drug. So we don't see a ton of incidents happening around that. So while it is always a concern, I think with our regulations and our process and our operating procedures, we can address a lot of those concerns and really regulate how these spaces are being used and make sure that they're being used in the appropriate and the intended fashion.
Sure, absolutely. All of that. And that's the come I was speaking on, how fortunate we are as a municipality, the size that we are, 6.5 mile radius city. It's easy for us to weed out, vet out those bad actors, right? Those bad actors. And we're going to have some great enforcement components included that would review some of these locations on a regular basis to assure that they're, on the up and up with regards to ventilation, with regards to security, with regards to, all of that. all of the requirements that we're going to be setting forth through policy and ordinance, all of that is going to be outlined. And so I appreciate everyone's feedback on that. If there's anything else, I think we went through our dates and times for our outreach. And I believe we set Vaughn, the Hawthorne Memorial Center, as the venue of choice. And I think we'll include Channel 22, which I'm positive they'll be there, but maybe they could be able to watch online too, the procedure. Is there anything more, anything further from anyone? If not, I will adjourn this meeting at 12:10. Thank you, everyone, and thank you to all of you, the attendees listening in. I appreciate your participation. Look forward to seeing you again at our next meeting. Take care.
Thank you, Chairwoman.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Everyone.